Up to that time, he was simply a truth seeker, like all other sincere human beings. Prior to his embodiment, he knew, but through his infancy and childhood, he did not know. In the same way, Nagarjuna did not know, except that he felt this strange urge which caused him to depart from his own faith and take on another belief. Some may say that this might have led to complications for the good man, but it did not, because Hinduism at that time was strangely tolerant. Sages and holy men moved about, transferring their allegiances with considerable freedom, and there was very little religious persecution of any kind. So in all probability, his former teachers sent him on to other teachers with a blessing. In any event, there came to him the inner realization, through magic, through incantations, through whatever rites you want to consider. The books are dim, the stories are plentiful. He became aware of the existence of the Sadhana Pundarika Sutta. He knew that it existed. He knew that it was the great esoteric book of Buddhism. He knew that it was the great discourse in which the secret of the large vehicle was to be revealed to the world. So he started out pilgrim-wise to find the book. And he knew what he was looking for. He was looking for the secret place that was guarded by the king of the Nagas and all the faithful people of the serpent. And these same people of the serpent, by the way, occur on our western hemisphere. The Quetzalcoatl was the feathered serpent. The Aztecs and the Mayas were called the Great Serpent, and their subterranean temples and galleries were the serpent's holes in the earth. And here under the earth, the secret mysteries were revealed. So we have the same tradition moving everywhere. And Nagarjuna knew that the serpent had placed the great treasure in the Iron Tower. Now, the Iron Tower has been a subject of art and controversy also for a long time. What was it? We learn in the old scriptures that the planet itself was believed in the old times to be girdled with a wall of iron. Also that a great iron band or wall guarded the sanctuary of Meru, the mountain of the world. The Iron Tower, therefore, seems to represent a term of infinite protection. And from the oldest diagrams and figures in which the Tibetans particularly attempted to picture it, the tower resembles a small reliquary or oriental pagoda. It consists of a square base supporting a short cylinder which tops itself in the form of a half sphere. On this is a sort of roof, square also, with the little pitched ends of a pagoda. And out of this, in the center, rises a spire surrounded by 9 rings and surmounted by the blazing pearl. This little pagoda form is still found all of where Buddhism is known. It is still a reliquary. It is most usually found on the properties of monasteries as the abode of the spirits of the great priests who have gone before. It may be built over a relic, some small remain of a physical priest. But actually the great golden pagoda at Rangoon, the Shwe Dagon, the Golden Dragon, is such a pagoda in the Burmese form. The great Vats of Siam are also such pagodas. And in China, we have them rising like little buildings of several stories, like towers. Whereas in Japan, we are more apt to find the old Hindu or Tibetan style predominating. Somewhere was the Iron Tower. And in the Iron Tower, the mystery of the law slept, waiting revelation. And by his magic, Nagarjuna was able to find the Iron Tower. Some say that when he reached there, an ancient sage was dwelling near the tower. Some say that this sage was a vision sent from another world, as the visions of age, sickness, and death were sent to the young Prince Gautama before he became a Buddha. Some say that Nagarjuna was instructed by this sage, and that this was the real secret of the whole thing. Others say no, this doesn't quite explain everything. But anyway, however it may be, the wise men, the Nagas, whether they be adepts or sages, whether the Iron Tower was a symbol of the eternal Shambhala, the abode of the gods, whatever the mystery may be, from the Iron Tower, Nagarjuna received the Lotus Sutra. Now, those who wish to say that he wrote it and the rest of it is a legend, who can deny them? Who can affirm anything? The only thing that we can say is that if he did write it himself, the rest is fable. He produced one of the most extraordinary works in the history of the world. So he produced something by means of which the teachings of a lonely Indian mendicant, honored, loved, venerated, but seldom understood, these teachings were made available to the great mass of the Asiatic people. And from this sutra and its implications arose what we know as the wheel of the great doctrine, the Northern School, the school that transformed Buddhism from a patient waiting for the unknown to a dynamic building towards an enlightened human society. Some will say, and the Southern Buddhists insist, that all this was a sustaining of the teachings of Buddha. But if you study the Mahayana scriptures carefully, and there are others that came later besides the one of the Great Law, the other sutras, of course, are commentaries and interpretations by the great patriarchs of the various schools. But this one unique sutra has been held in common by all northern Asiatic peoples. It is the foundation of Lamaism in Tibet. It is the foundation of Chinese Buddhism. It was the great power that created Japanese Buddhism. It was present to a modified degree, but rather strongly, in Korea. Wherever the great motion of Buddhism passed, it contributed to the glory of it. It gave the world the wonders of the Buddha Babur in Java, and the great cosmological monuments that are still to be found in the most remote parts of China. No longer, unfortunately, can we visit them. In any way we wish to look at it, a new dispensation occurred. And this is traced distinctly to the opening of the doors of the Iron Tower. From that time on, the new revelation was prepared for the service of mankind. And Nagarjuna, if he invented it, if he wrote it, merely elevated himself to one of the highest places known in the levels of spiritual consciousness. It is unlikely that he wrote it. It is most unlikely, because he was but a recent convert from Hinduism. Had he written it, he would have most certainly involved in it much more Brahmanical philosophy. Like all Buddhism, he borrows some, but not excessively. The only other possible explanation is the one of the sage whom he met at the Iron Tower, who may have had an older contact. Some have tried to insist that the doctrine was in existence among certain sages for a century or more before Nagarjuna. It is all myth. It is all legend. But out of this strange, legendary foundation arose something that was not legend in any sense of the word. As a result of the gradual interpretation of this sutra, which was copied with the commentaries of Nagarjuna, also Nagarjuna prepared his own commentaries by which he was elevated to the estate of the 14th patriarch of the Great Descent. And even sects that do not follow precisely his instruction still acknowledge that he is of the highest order of canonization, that he is one who is already a bodhisattva, to go on to still higher achievements in the Northern School. We now have the primary differentiation between the two schools. We have, first of all, the doors of Buddhism strangely open to all men. Buddha opened the first gate by disregarding the caste system. He declared that regardless of birth, regardless of race, regardless of affiliation, the individual could attain enlightenment. That there was no person so ignorant that inevitable enlightenment was not his, by a right beyond any power of man to destroy. But Buddha did not clearly indicate the difference between the clergy and the laity. He created, and probably very wisely in his own time, because after all he was establishing a school, which was later to unfold, but he had to give it body. And he did this by the Sangha. He established the orders of the monks. And during his lifetime he lived to see this community increase in number, regain honor and distinction, and he also established the monastic orders for women. But the Northern School, the revelation of the Blue Lotus, suddenly opened the way of salvation to persons not dedicated to the clergy. The way of salvation eliminated the absolute requirement of monastic orders. The Northern School held firmly that illumination, enlightenment, spiritual progress, growth, and unfoldment were based entirely upon virtue, upon integrity, upon the individual performing to the very best of his ability those duties and responsibilities which were his natural requirements. Therefore, it was perfectly possible for the household, or the parent, the child, the individual who continued to be a shopkeeper, who practiced the professions, who did whatever was naturally his occupation, his redemption, his illumination, his regeneration resulted from his faithful maintenance of the integrity of his own activity, whatever it might be. He was not to become an arhat by no longer being a physician, but by becoming a greater physician. He was not to wander off into aloneness if he was an attorney, but he was to stay and judge righteous judgment. Whatever he was doing, this was the area of his karma. Here it was that he must fulfill his message, his ministry, and his purpose. And all good deeds accomplished by him contributed to his enlightenment, just as certainly as privation or detachment from worldliness. The Mahayana took the idea that this detachment was not a walking out on worldliness, but a detachment from selfishness, from self-seeking, from all these negative or destructive attitudes, by means of which we exploit or betray the tasks and duties which we should properly and nobly perform. So this was the next step in the great motion of Buddhistic democracy. It had already extended to the animal kingdom and accepted the animal as the brother. It had extended itself to the mysterious beings of the invisible worlds, ghosts, demons, monsters, and formed them all into acolytes of the Buddhistic order. Now it was to transform the problem of Buddhism itself. From the secret books of the Iron Tower, it was also pointed out that there was the heart path to realization. That the heart represented, actually in Buddhism, by the assembly of the Bodhisattvas, was as sure a path as certainly road to illumination as any reasoning, any meditation, any abstract discipline, any self-style.
The first thing that we should have to have.
But actually,
is a complete
the wise man and the good man,
the word
these
itself
two are
carries the
one.
secret of itself. The word
Both have achieved exactly the same end.
means to
For wisdom must end in goodness.
rainfall.
And that which is good is truly wise, regardless of all other
Take
attainments.
to start with.
So the good person,
Education is to relieve
the individual
conscious
in whose heart and mind there was the continuing remembrance of the law,
education
this
is to use the
constituted
mind
the
purposes
heart path to
to
enlightenment.
establish purposes by which the
So it was
mind
certainly
is
this
properly
approach
employed.
that captured the heart of Asia.
Education is therefore the
It
victory
was this approach which
growth
resulted in the triumphant march of Buddhism across a third of the surface of the earth.
Education
It also contributed everything to the great artistic cultural heritage in which Buddhism became so closely
If it is
identified.
important, then he must protect it.
Here was
If
the
he doesn't protect it, he doesn't
inspiration
use it.
of a great art.
The idea of somebody else
Here was the reverence and the gentleness.
must not carry
There was the
on.
subtle hopes, the mysteries of a world of beauty and truth.
Fundamental.
It was concealed from the common state of man, only by a very thin veil.
Actual honesty.
It seemed under such conditions that almost anyone at any moment might see these luminous figures rise before him. If he looked at the sunset, he could see the radiant head of the Amida circled by the halo of the setting
chaos
sun.
we have now.
Everywhere,
We have 100
the universe became filled with light
or
beings.
sword points.
And by degrees, these light beings overcame all the shadows
All
which had held men in fear and doubt and bondage for ages. The Northern Buddhist school suddenly gave to man an invisible universe of beauty with which to surround him.
The only way we can have integrity
It gave him a universe of infinite hope.
to the degree
It gave him the solemn assurance of the sages
but withdraw
that all would come
cooperation
well.
from those who are
And in this system, because of its complete lack of, almost, we could say, complete lack of any trace of intolerance,
degree of
there was no longer any war of creed.
continue
Men did not fail because they belonged to another faith. Hunan, the great Buddhist mystic, describes how the saints of other religions have all achieved bodhisattvahood. But all the good and the pure and the noble everywhere are part of this glorious company of the radiant ones. So the universe suddenly became almost as in the apocalyptical vision of the Blue Lotus, an extent of beings as far as mind and consciousness could conceive, all chanting together the glory of the doctrine, all bearing witness together to the infinite wisdom, infinite graciousness of truth, a cosmic revelation of beauty, a universe of principles, all of them benevolent, in which there was no evil principle, no power of ultimate evil anywhere, evil being only man's ignorance, being the darkness which he has cast upon himself. So this vision, of course, was in some way tremendously acceptable. We can understand why this would be. We can also understand why in local periods when times were fortunate, as in the age of the Fujiwara in Japan, great princes and kings, rulers of the highest families, both men and women of the imperial house, resigned their temporal honors and took holy orders. Emperors became monks. Empresses became nuns. And the great and powerful nobles united together in their efforts to create on earth a visible commonwealth based upon the mysteries of Amida's Western paradise. The idea was to beautify everything, to make the whole world a sanctuary of beauty and of good, to transform this earth into a wonder similar to paradise. In this, of course, they had a certain basic indoctrination from the northern school, in which it was assumed that it was the task of the Buddha Gautama
he can learn
transform this planet into his eastern paradise and rule over our world as Amida ruled over the paradise of the West. So everyone was helping or trying to help or thinking about helping to make this great beauty a reality. Obviously, these tremendous spurts of idealism could not be maintained. The intensities of life would not permit it. One by one, these ancient shrines were deserted, or at least became merely great treasures of nations to be shown to travelers, even to be used still for religious purposes. But there was this tremendous outburst of divine hope. And this was represented in the final culmination of most of these Buddhist schools in Japan, where alone we can study them today. There is practically no other place where we can study them. And that is the rising of the 10 or 12 schools, according to different classifications of Buddhists in Japan. The first two schools, those which came under the direct supervision of Prince Shotoku, belonged to the Southern School. They were the severe school of the renunciation of the world and the arhat wandering into the lowlands. But they vanished away, and little remains but their monuments. And almost immediately, the northern schools took over Japanese consciousness. It was firmly established for the 7th or 8th century. Then came the burst of art. Then came the wonderful unfoldment of architecture, of music, of the theater, of literature, of all the craft and artistic procedures. Gradually the tea ceremony, the flower arrangement, the no drama. All these things came out of this tremendous impact of artistry. And this whole artistry is almost completely an effort to capture in some way this apocalyptic vision of the Lotus Sutra. In some way this sutra has become the inspiration for all that followed after. In the Chinese versions, in the early printed forms of the Sung and early Ming dynasties, the sutras are illustrated with great panoramas indicating the assemblages. Similar paintings exist at Chunhuan and Tufan in Xinjiang and in Chinese Turkestan. These great symbols also captured in the idea of the Buddha of Kamakura in Japan, the seated Buddha which we all know so well, over 40 feet in height. This quiet meditating figure is an effort to capture in the majestic proportions of itself something of the vision of the Lotus Sutra. The great Buddha Vivekananda at Nara, that is much larger, also represents the idea of the great teacher in his body of universal light. The only way they could even indicate it was by increasing the size or dimension of the image. This process goes on throughout all the symbolism. In all these symbols we find the historical teacher, Gautama, not lost, not gone forever, but submerged in the vast manifestations of himself. Behind all of it is recognized the strange likeness of himself. For it was his own extraordinary revelation which created in man the archetype of all that was to follow. But upon this archetype was built the tremendous structure of interpretation, which finally was represented in the rise of the northern sect. Today we have in Japan and in China, where we can get at them, Hong Kong and Formosa, in Korea, where they can be reached at all, and in other isolated areas, formerly in Tibet, still in Nepal. We do have the continuous functioning of the northern system. We have Gautama not so prominently displayed, but assumed and implied. For every figure of the Buddha that exists is merely an expression of the Gautama form. They're all based upon the one form. Every one of these transcendent beings in all their glories are nothing but a representation of Buddha at the moment of his illumination. All the wonderful bodhisattvic robes and jewels and adornments are all based upon Prince Siddhartha before the Enlightenment, when he was Prince of Kapilavastu, and therefore in his full royal habiliments. All the quiet, shaven-headed monks and all the arhats are merely Buddha the Wanderer. They're wandering around in Bengal, looking for teachers that could give him the instruction. For all images are nothing but an extension of him. But in the course of this extension, this tremendous symbolic process, these extensions have taken on certain individualities of their own that are so regarded and venerated. But it is incorrect to say that they are worshipped.
It is working in the magnetic and
in the Northern School, we have several sects, such as the Jodo and the Shin, and the Jodo Shin, and the Honganji, and many other sects, including the Nichiren-shu. These are Japanese schools. Every one of them adore the Sutra, the Lotus of the Law. All of them are revelations based upon the strange, rather intense and gruff personality of Shonen Nichiren. This man was always belligerent, always a stormy force in the life of the country while he was alive, who lived in its stormiest period at the time of the threatened invasions by the hosts of Kublai Khan. This man, in his meditation, was seeking to give the people of Japan an interpretation of the greatest and most important and most profound concept to be found anywhere in Buddhism. He wanted to give them the soul of the doctrine. And obviously and inevitably, he revealed it to them through the Sutra of the Lotus of the Good Law, which is the most sacred book of that sect. It is the sacred book of all the Amida sects of Japan and some others also. It is very strong in the undercurrent of Zen, though not so obvious. In every instance, it is the revelation of a great universal life principle. The universe unfolds as in the apocalyptic vision of the Sutra itself, to be an infinite world of infinite growth, with all things moving inevitably toward peace, toward a great happiness, not an extinction, but a reunion with life, not a ceasing, but a oneness with the magnificent thrill of eternal existence. Not the darkness of oblivion, not the dying out of everything, but the gradual dying out of error, until relieved of this, and with the inner light of his own consciousness, man looking the sunrise, looking out over the mountains, looking into the cities and towns, looking into the eyes of his own children, sees everywhere the magnificent pageantry of the Lotus Sutra. Everything filled with life. Everything filled with infinite beatitude. Everything thrilling and moving by laws that are immutable. And these laws are forever mercifully administered by those who understand them. For the laws are revealed through those who know them. The great body of the law through the enlightened power of the Buddha Shakyamuni, the great orthodox. All the transcendent interpretations, all the subtle mysteries of hope and faith and kindness, all the healing powers, the consoling forces, all administered by the great Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Here the whole universe consists of dedicated souls serving the law and bringing all life to conscious insight, oneness with the purpose of the law. There is no strange emotionalism such as we have in some other religions. It is not an emotional faith, but it is a faith of great quietude. And out of this great quietude, this solemn assurance of all things, comes a kind of emotion that is a little difficult to understand, but is definitely there.
It is that
It is
we
the emotion of a strange, transcendent
not
certainty.
solely for profit.
An emotion in which the bereaved does not weep for the lost one,
Beyond the
but has some strange, quiet, and perhaps a little sad realization in himself
continual profit.
that all of this is part of the infinite process of infinite good. That everything is within the light that shines from the urna, the great coiled pearl of light on the forehead of the infinite Buddha. That as this light shines into all places in space, it reveals worlds that we do not know. It brings light into the most obscure corners of creation and eternity. But wherever the light strikes, if it goes off into some distant star, if it goes into the uttermost parts of space, wherever this light strikes, there will be found the assemblies of the Arhats. There will be found the gracious faces of the Bodhisattvas. There enthroned among them will be the Buddhas of the 10 directions of space. Everywhere, the law. Perhaps what Buddha wanted to try to carry through in this was the transcendency of the law itself. Not a law that we can comprehend fully, but a law beyond any question of doubt. The time of the temptation scene, the strange moment when Buddha awaited illumination under the bo tree. So the hosts of Mara came to tempt him, and universal confusion closed in upon him in an effort to turn him from the quiet internal realization which he saw. The hosts of the material world, symbolized by Mara, said, we own all things. We are masters of everything. We are the kings and the emperors. We have all strength, all authority. And we have a whole creation of ignorant, but nevertheless highly opinionated beings that are ready to testify to us. They will bear witness to our power. They will bear witness to their daily thoughts that they fear Caesar. They will bear witness in every moment of their lives. But most of all, they want to perpetuate this physical existence, even though it corrupts their souls. We have witnessed that materiality is supreme. When Mara turned to the Buddha, who was just attaining enlightenment, and he said, who do you have to bear witness? Buddha made the mudra, which is found on many of his images, called the earth witnessing. He puts his hand down and touches the earth. And when he does so, the great Earth Mother, like the wonderful Erder of the Nibelungen, the great Earth Mother rises before him. And she says, I bear witness. I am the great mother of all that lives. I bear witness.
We're going to have a new
I am the one whose infinite laws, infinite processes of birth,
is going to prove
growth,
that
maturity,
divine things
decay,
are stronger and more
processes of little birds coming from the eggs,
We're going to find
processes of the ripe grain growing in the field, the processes of the trees heavy with fruit,
associated with our daily life.
processes,
We may not know
birds knowing where to go in migration.
why we need it. If we
Everywhere,
study history, we know we have
these
to have it.
processes,
And
are the
these
law.
things will gradually clear themselves
these
up.
processes we call
Rewrite a lot
nature.
of curricula and get
The
a
Earth
new
Mother
point of
said,
view
I
on
am
some of these
nature.
essential purposes of life.
I bear witness
I think that we can
that every law of nature
has to come back.
bears
Maybe
witness
Paul will be
to the
the
truth of
athletic
this fact.
teacher in the school, and some of the other
This
children
was
will be in the higher
not only the
grades,
beginning
some
of
will
the
be
earth
lower
witnessing,
grades, and some will be taken
but
care of
probably
by children in the
was
higher
one
grades.
of the roots
All that is
of the
one.
Lotus
It's
Sutra.
part of life. And
This
if
is
we
one of many intimations that are found in the earliest records.
and love each other,
For Buddha, with his hand in the earth witnessing posture,
and realize
is known
happiness
much
is
earlier
happiness
than the
to all.
attributed date of the
There can be
founding
no
or discovery of this
happiness to one
sutra.
at the expense of the other.
So the earth witnessing episode, while probably legendary also, goes back very
History
far.
will be practical. We are
But its
told
main
it must
purpose
be practical.
is expressed by the teacher in his own words, that he
That
asks no one to believe anything
and luxurious.
unless they can prove it in daily life.
Actually, to be practical.
The daily life,
Means that which
the
is
happiness and the
greatest
sorrow,
good for
the
the
coming and the
greatest
going,
and
the
we
rising and the
and
falling,
making the change
all of the
in
things
our
that happen every day,
more better
these bear witness to the law.
will reduce wars.
The law is not based upon revelation, though God pronounced it. No vast conspiracy of heaven decreed it.
And all these things
It is
which are
eternal.
part of a great
But everything that exists witnesses it.
which is we have
And the
permitted
perfect witness of the law,
we have had
that in which it is entirely embodied,
depth of understanding.
the mysterious golden figure
Know sometimes.
seated in the midst of the universe
So we have to suffer a little as we go.
in the
But
lotus
this
sutra,
suffering, if it produces in
seated upon the lotus of nature,
is well worth what it
rising by the very processes of eternal growth,
21st century. With education,
seated forever in the absolute composure of complete
spreads from
acceptance.
there throughout the
This
world.
figure
The
symbolizes,
individual who starts out
in a
right,
strange
in the
way,
beginning
an
of
extraordinary achievement
ideas
possible to
and
man.
motives that are true. will
It can
come
be
out
accepted,
always.
it can be
I know
rejected.
several families in which
It can be held to be an answer, or it may be denied.
never will be.
Some will not consider that it is
They're very
religious
happy
at all.
in that family.
But this is a
They're
strange
much
proclamation
more
of
happy
religion.
than these,
But
families
certainly,
in extravagance
moving
of the
across
early
the
days.
face of Asia,
They have what they have
it
because
became
as a family.
the most civilizing power that the East has ever
They
known.
love each other. They work
And in
together.
many respects, it accomplished for them a civilizing influence that the West has never known.
in the integrities of the
Because the West has always
they always attempt to live it.
looked upon space,
It is
the
not
great
we
void,
say
to be
today.
conquered by
You
man.
can seldom if ever find
It is a great emptiness to be filled by human ingenuity.
that is happy.
Man was a creature, space was nothing.
Foliage, there is nothing but conflict.
Man was a being, space was beingless. Man has a mind, space is mindless. This has been the common thought of the
Therefore,
West.
we should all be educating
While we held religion, we never permitted it, in most instances, to dominate our conduct to the degree that it modified our ambitions.
Then we have to work
So in the West,
those who are older.
when the thinker looks out into
Well,
space,
age group,
he sees only a mystery extending on and on and on through physical extension
age.
to infinity.
But there is nothing there to
But
worry
the
about.
Buddhist, looking into the same direction of space, if he uses the outer eyes of his body, sees exactly what the scientist sees. Nothing.
Yeah. Woman said
But in the quietude of
he
himself,
was lying in
something
the
happens.
back of a little
he begins to feel
house
something.
in
He discovers within himself that this space is not empty, that he is not alone, that his own kind is not unique or the only thing that was ever produced by nature.
He was lying on his couch.
And in his meditation and his mysticism,
Sitting up a little bit.
the extension of his own
And he
mental
was listening
processes,
attentively
his
to the
intuitive
voice of the front
processes,
row.
his inward imagery, suddenly causes this space to blaze out
Grandfather,
as a magnificent universe of
you're
value.
going to die in a few hours.
He sees life everywhere, law everywhere, beauty everywhere, truth
But
everywhere.
I'm alive now.
And to
I'm
him,
alive. I can
those who
live.
have gone before in this infinite path of growth
While we were alive, we
turn
can
back
and learn.
as kindly
While we were
elders,
alive, we can earn a better destiny.
as dedicated
We
friends,
can make a great move of
to
some
help
kind in
him.
the closing years of life.
And this whole hierarchy
Pattern of our
is that of
misdeeds and
dedication.
mistakes.
Now a man might
Very quietly,
see these strange half-opened eyes looking at him and through him.
of the things
And
we
perhaps
believe
in a moment of
the hopes we have.
inner vision, he might turn to see if they are looking at something behind him,
Human
because
beings
they do not
must
seem to be
believe in the
focused
future.
directly on
They
him.
must believe that
This
if
is
they
true
are
of practically
young,
all these
the
images.
part of their future is here.
And if he gets
If
this
they're
feeling, he
old,
is correct.
most of their future is
The
elsewhere.
image is not looking at
But
him.
in any case, there is
The
future.
image is looking at
Certain
infinity.
is death for the living.
Behind the man who faces the image
Regular people.
is an
He
infinite
is
process
in
of
eternal
existence.
quest for reality,
This face is looking past
for
him,
that kind of inner
into the roots of himself,
which is
into the animal
peace,
world,
which is passive understanding.
into all the creatures
Here to
of the
grow,
elements,
to learn, to love,
mysterious creatures we know nothing about,
and if we fulfill these
plants
desires,
and minerals and atoms and
very
electrons.
much. And a world that
This
becomes
saving
aware
face
and begins to try
is
to
not
do it,
to devote it
will
completely
gain
to
very
him.
rapidly.
He is only an incident
Between now and
in
the
the
end
great
of this
process
century,
of
we will
salvation.
find major changes in
The
the
face of this meditating
We will
power
find new approaches
must
to the
redeem
idea of
all that
teaching.
exists.
We shall try to
It must
understand
find,
the
understand,
difference
share,
between graduating
enlighten
theology from the university
even the
and
tiniest
narcotics
electron.
at the same time.
Everything must move
Representing
into this great pageant,
as in the case of
must unfold its divinity and its beauty,
alcohol.
till it becomes
These are all
likewise the
presenting to
shining
us
servant
the
of
fact
eternal
that as
truth.
individuals, we
This
have
was
not
the vision of the
been
Lotus
taught to be
Sutra.
strong.
This is what
We have not been
Nagarjuna
taught
said,
to cling to what
contained
is
in the
right.
iron
We
tower
have not
guarded
been
for the
taught
purpose.
to put the good of ourselves
May mean that it was the
at the
eternal
head
doctrine,
of our lives. We know these
held in
bad
secret
habits
by ancient orders
or
of priests.
destroy us so completely.
Perhaps,
that
if
we are
Buddhism is correct, brought from other worlds and other suns and other aeons
promise of the moment
into
which
this
we feel
world of
things
ours.
so tall,
Like
it
the
will
mysterious,
come
fabulous pagoda floating in space
as not so
in
important.
the inner
This
vision of the
feeling
Lotus
of being
Sutra.
10 feet high
In any
does
event,
not mean to us.
this, to the Buddhist,
Actually, at this
is the
moment,
supreme
God
achievement of his
is
faith,
10 feet
his
high.
sudden discovery
Everything
of the
is
living universe,
their little problem.
universe alive in spirit and soul and in mind,
Everyone will be real.
universe of
Everyone
infinite
will
wisdom,
live his own
infinite
life.
love,
No one will be
manifesting
responsible.
forever
The
through
cities will
infinite
take care
love.
of the children.
This was the
The monastery
apocalyptic
will take care
vision,
of the aged.
and
each
the
individual
tracing
will
of it,
belong
and
to
the
that
story
common
of it,
generation.
and the legends around it
Now, this is
are
not
among the
taking
most
from-
fascinating and interesting of
This
all
is the
Eastern
same
stories.
thing as taking cocaine.
Well, I think our time is up, so thank you
Has
very
already
much.
ruled the world. Our world has been fed on various false doctrines, not return, but false policies, false doctrines, false beliefs, false allegiances, until we now feel that we are just about the most perfect creatures that ever lived. But if we take a second look, we have to revise the estimate somewhat. We have to realize that in this last generation, we have broken more natural laws. We have misused more natural products. We have involved ourselves in more unnatural situations than ever before in history. We've broken rules that our ancestors didn't even know existed. We've done everything that we could just to do what we want to right now, and the circumstances don't mean anything because we're going to be dead anyway. This thinking has got to go. And if it doesn't go any other way, we'll go in great wars and atomic bombing. But it doesn't need to. As we are assured that if many fall because of their iniquities, the just person shall not be moved. We will not fall, individually or collectively, if we keep the rules, serve the truth, and do our daily chores as best we can. We will also have peace of mind, peace of soul, and because of doing it right, we're apt to have better health. And the individual will no longer drop dead with a heart attack at 49. All these things come as a result of changes in our way of life. Live straight and we'll live straight. Live straight and things will work right. Do all the things that we can to the best of our ability and pass on to our descendants a heritage of good examples. If we will do these things, we will not have much else to worry about. We can then go peacefully along in the day, enjoying the arts and crafts, partaking in all those things which are useful, but avoiding carefully any form of activity which is unnecessarily harmful to any other creature. Live harmlessly, as Gandhi said. Live as far as we can to help the world rather than to hurt it. Not out to slaughter animals, but to take care of them. Not out to slaughter human beings, but to save them. And not out simply to enslave, technically, even though we do not use the term, millions of human beings. All these things will cause trouble. And if we correct the mistakes in ourselves, we will end most of the world's suffering. And the school should teach this. The school should teach that every student is a potential force for good if he is willing to accept the responsibility. And if he is not willing to accept the responsibility, it is foolish indeed for the community to educate him. But he will, with proper example and proper encouragement, proper inspiration, accept this standard of better living. He will be proud that he can be part of a generation that makes a contribution to the future. All these things are possible to him, and he can do them. But he needs a little help at this time. The schooling should begin to teach him what he should be, instead of preparing him to fit like a robot into some prearranged economic system. The whole theory of robot economics that we know now is a dying theory. It will not last. It cannot go on. It can never be profitable. But it will fascinate all kinds of people who love gadgets and who think of all change as progress. And every new complication is a thing of beauty and a joy forever. This type of thinking is not any good. But if we work with it properly, and the schools will get back to getting to the truth of the matter, getting to the facts that we know are true, and which we can prove from 5,000 years of written history and 50 years of current miseries. All these things we can learn, understand, and take into consideration. If we can get together, we can become the members of a planet, and the earth itself will be the great schoolhouse. Here we will all be here as ABCDarian students in the College of the Holy Spirit. That is what the Rosicrucians called it. We all are in school. It doesn't show from here much, but this is the little red schoolhouse. And we're all in it. And it's time to graduate more students with honorable marks for having done it right. The time of playing hooky and being prudent and not doing the lesson and trying to escape the responsibility, these times are passing, because the world simply cannot support the abuses which has been heaped upon it. The time has come for the regeneration of these things, a universal reformation of human relationships, with the emphasis upon a unity in the world family and the recognition that we are all one group, and that this group depends upon its own inner structure for survival. And if we work together, we can survive, we can protect resources, we can do all kinds of good things. But if we keep on paying other people to do it for us, we're going to be in the same condition we're in now indefinitely. It's time for us to do our own thing and do it right. I'd like to also announce that tomorrow evening my wife is having her monthly meeting in Monday evenings